Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this first meeting of the Senate Committee on Education, and we are in the 83rd session of the Nevada State Legislature. So we're going to start with our roll. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Buck. Here. Senator Cruz Crawford.
Present.
Senator Donate. Senator Dondero Loop.
Here.
Senator Rogish. Senator Titus.
Here.
Chair Taylor.
Thank you very much. I am here. Everybody's here. We have a quorum. Okay, so welcome to all the members who may be joining us here in Carson City. First of all, anybody in Las Vegas, I think I see at least somebody down there, and anyone who may be listening online, welcome, welcome, welcome. Since this is our first meeting, we're going to do a little housekeeping. So I just want to make some general housekeeping reminders. Some of these are going to be repetitious for some of you, but just, go with me. First of all, please silence your electronic devices while in the committee room. Anyone wishing to testify, we need you to sign in at the table by the door. And if you have a business card, please provide that business card to the staff over here, the committee secretary. For those of you who plan to testify, make sure you turn on the microphone. Clearly state your name and affiliation if you have one for the record. And then please remember when you're finished speaking, please turn off your microphone. We don't want you to say something on the record you don't want to say on the record. Okay, public comment may be provided in several different ways. First of all, obviously here in Carson City in person, in Las Vegas in person, and then by phone. And if those of you have pulled up the agenda, then that number is available on the agenda, so you can call in and you'll have that opportunity as well. And then, of course, the written comments can be submitted to the committee via email. And that address is also listed on the agenda. And please feel free to submit your full comments in writing. And then when you testify at the table, feel free to summarize. Just saying. All right. I will say this, we're a policy committee. And so when there's a lot of overlap between policy and fiscal components in education, there are a lot of opportunities for overlap. We will take care of focusing on the policy matters during our hearing here, and then we'll let the fiscal folks do what they do. I have asked those who will be presenting to us throughout the session to please limit the presentations to 15 minutes, and then that will allow some time for questions afterwards. And then also there may be times, depending upon how many want to speak, that we may limit comments in support, in opposition, or in neutral. And then when you do speak public comments, then we're going to limit it to 2 minutes. If you have a handout for the committee, an electronic copy must be emailed to Louise Bush right over here. You'll meet the staff in just a moment, at least 24 hours before the meeting. And then you must bring 10 copies to the meeting for members of the public. We want to make sure the public has what we have. And then finally, we understand that we are servants of the public, and we take this duty very seriously, although we may as well have some fun while we do it. But we're certainly honored to serve in this capacity, and I'm honored to serve as your chair. There are times, and you may already know this, that committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents and so on, but please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or as inattentiveness. And I will do everything in my power, whether it's commenting, limiting things and so on, to ensure a fair hearing for all parties on the bills and so on that we're hearing in this session. As you know, we only have 120 days to do this, and it seems like a long time, but it isn't. The calendar is quite compressed, and then sometimes this may make it necessary to limit the length of testimony, but I will always do my best to balance that, because we do want to hear from you, and we want to hear all sides of an issue. And then finally, I'm going to ask for your patience as we jump into this over the next several weeks. Presentations and bill hearings, for those of you who've been in education for a long time, it may get kind of repetitious for some, but as the chair of the committee, I asked that we want everyone to be fully brought up to speed, and there's several of us who are new to the Senate, and we want to make sure everyone's brought up to speed fully and understand the really important issues that we will be considering. So thank you so much for being here today, and I'm sure many of you we will see over and over and over again, and that's okay. All right, so before we begin today's agenda, and we do have a small agenda, I would like to just take a moment for the committee and staff to do introductions. And I'm going to start with the single most important people in the room, and that is our staff. I've asked each staff member on this committee as as unwilling as they may have been to do public comments, to speak publicly, just to briefly introduce themselves. We want to know, we want you to know who's doing the good work. They do the work that really, really matters. And then I'll give committee members an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then we'll go from there. So let's start with committee members, then we do our staff, and then we'll break it up with legal and so on. So we're going to start with the legal division, and then our staff in the Senate. So, Miss Jennifer Sturm Gaynor, she's our policy analyst, and we will start with you when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Jen Sturm Gaynor, a Senior Principal Policy Analyst with the Research Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. I have been with LCB since 2016, and I've primarily just staffed education in this session and interim, so I'm happy to be here.
We're very happy to
Thanks.
have Jen with us. Thank you so much. Mr. Alberto Quintero, is Alberto there in Vegas? All right. Please go ahead, Alberto, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Alberto Quintero, and I am a Senior Policy Analyst here at LCB. I've been at LCB for just about a year. Prior to that, helped lead NDE's family engagement efforts for over 6.5 years. And prior to that, I taught 7th grade ELA and coached boys and girls soccer at Del H. Robinson Middle School in East Las Vegas. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate all of your help. Miss Crystal Rowe, please go ahead when you are ready.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Crystal Rowe. I am the Assistant Manager of Research Policy Assistance with the Research Division of the LCB. This is my 4th session. I've staffed a variety of committees, including Commerce and Labor, Health and Human Services, and Education. And I will primarily be providing backup behind the scenes assistance to your policy analysts.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It's really good to have you. Our final member of the legal staff, right down there at the end. Cameron, would you please go forward? Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name's Cameron Newton. That name used to get a lot more laughs when he was still playing football. I am the Senior Deputy Legislative Counsel with the LCB Legal Division. This is my 2nd session with the LCB. Last session I worked on the Assembly Education Committee, and over the interim I worked with the Joint Interim Standing Committees on Education as well as Growth and Infrastructure. So I'm looking forward to working with this committee during this session.
Thank you so much. We're happy to have you. Now we're going to go to our Senate staff, and we're going to start with our Secretary, Louise Bush. Please go ahead when you're ready, Louise.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Louise Bush. I'm the committee manager for the committee, and I am the one who will be receiving all the exhibits that you send in and posting them on Nellis when they meet the copyright criteria. This is my 2nd session with the legislature. The 1st session, I was with education also. Thank you.
Thank you so much. She's already been a great help to us. Next, Sharon McCallin. McCallin. Is it McCallin? McCallin. All right, got it right.
You did better than I did. I apologize. My name is Sharon McCallin, and I moved up here in 1985 with my retired Los Angeles Police Sergeant. My sons and their families followed soon after. I worked for the Department of Education for 20 years, and since then I've worked 7 sessions on the Assembly side with the Committee on Education. This is my 1st session on the Senate side, so I'm really a newbie. And I'm very, very proud to be a part of Nevada. I love Nevada.
Don't worry at all. This is my very, very first session on the Senate side, too. So we'll go through this together. And next we'll have Virginia Weitzel. Yeah, there you are. Please come on up.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name's Virginia Weitzel, and this is my very first session as a committee secretary. I'm currently a candidate for my Master's of Public Administration and Policy at the University of Nevada, Reno. I've been living in Reno since 2020, and I absolutely love Nevada. I spend as much time as I can in Lake Tahoe, and I'm so honored to be here and working with all of you.
Thank you so much to our staff. And then finally, in terms of our Senate staff, someone who makes sure I get here on time and I'm ready to do the work, my legislative assistant, Miss Norma Kia. Norma, please come on up.
Hello. It's
Hello.
wonderful to be here. My name is Norma Kia. I am the legislative assistant for Senator Taylor. This is my second legislative session. First one was in the Assembly, second one is now here. I am a Nevada native, and something interesting about me is I used to collect comic books. So I'll just leave that there. All right. Thank you.
All right, that's a request for anyone with extra comic books. You might move up on the I need to meet with Senator Taylor list if you bring a couple. Just saying. Just saying. Thank you, Ms. Kia. All right, lastly, in terms of our introductions, but absolutely not least, I'd like to recognize all of the staff behind the scenes, ensuring that our committee meetings and the legislature, even as a whole, run smoothly, from our AV team, public hearings, AVH, or public hearings, and information technology services staff. And even we want to thank our legislative police and also to our maintenance staff, our janitorial staff. All of them do the hard work that allows us, all of us, to be in this room and do the work that we do. So we certainly want to make sure that that we thank them and acknowledge them. And I will thank you in advance for the hard work that's ahead of all of us. This session, this is day 3. Someone said it felt like day 153, but not quite. It's day 3 for me. This is day 3, so we have a lot of hard work ahead. So thank you. Thank you in advance. I'm looking forward to you, and I can't do this thing without you. And now that we've met our staff, let's turn our attention to the committee members to make their own introductions or comments, and then please feel free, committee members, to share your name, of course, the district you represent, and your interest in education, right? And if you collect comic books, we want to know that too. Okay, I will start. I'm Angie Taylor, the chair of the committee. I proudly represent Senate District 15 here in Washoe County, and I am formerly in the Assembly member, District 27, and before then, 8 years on the school board, and then before them, 20 years at the University of Nevada. So I am an educator, lifelong educator. I am passionate about education because education changed my life, and then it changed my family. So it's quite an honor to be here and to be in the role that I am in. Now I will ask our Vice Chair, Senator Dondero-Loop.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My name is Marilyn Dondero-Loop, and I'm on my, I don't want to tell everybody how long I've been here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm on my 7th session, 3 in the Assembly, and this is number 4 in the Senate. I am a retired educator, taught 30 years in the Clark County School District, and then went on to work for some of the big education companies as a trainer, a professional development person. I have sat on education many times, but always am involved in education because I have 3 kids and 3 girls and 5 grandkids, and those 5 grandkids are all in school still. So our kids are the most important thing in our infrastructure, and so I want to make sure that they get the best education possible, and that the things that we are doing with them are what will encourage them to be good citizens in Nevada. So I too am a born and raised in Nevada girl, so I see a lot of familiar faces in here, and glad to see all of you and glad to be back.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. And now we'll go to my left, your right, and we will start at the end with Senator Rogich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laurie Rogish. I am a regulatory compliance lawyer and also a special needs advocate. I am a newly elected senator from the State District 11, which is down in Las Vegas. And thank you.
Thank you so much. Senator Donate?
Thank you so much, Chair, and good afternoon to everyone. My name is Fabian Danyate, representing Senate District 10 in Central Las Vegas. A little bit about my background. I was elected in 2022. This is my 3rd legislative session serving on Senate Education, so just very honored to be here. I'm a proud CCSD grad and also a proud grad of UNLV, so go Rebels.
Had to get that in. Just had to get that in. I blame you. Minority Leader, Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. very happy to be here with you, and thank you all for being here today. I am Robin Titus, Senate District 17, and I'm really honored to represent 6 different counties. And because I represent 6 different counties, I represent 6 different school districts. So my counties include all of Douglas, Lyon, Mineral, Churchill, Esmeralda, and Nye, because I represent Tonopah. So the issues are all unique, but they're all the same because we are all representing children. I also did a little math while I was sitting here, and my family's been involved in the education system in Nevada since the 1890s, so almost 135 years. And frankly, my great-grandfather, when Nevada passed a law to create school districts and a tax for that, my grandfather got built a little red schoolhouse in Smith Valley, and if you drive through Smith Valley, you'll see that little red schoolhouse. And he got that funded because my little grandmother, who was born in Smith Valley in the 1880s, he was a strong Methodist. He didn't want his little girl going to school in a bar because that's all they had there at the time. So when you drive through my valley, you see that little red schoolhouse. My great-grandfather got that schoolhouse built. But even better, my grandmother went to UNR, graduated in 1912, and came back to Smith Valley as a school teacher. I graduated there with my medical degree in undergrad. My daughter graduated there with her psychology degree, teaching certificate. We have 11 grandkids. I'm telling them grandma's checks only get written to UNR. Having said that, I also am very proud of what UNLV has become in the time that I've been in this body, the professional schools, the professionalism, the work that they're doing, our community college, our undergrad schools. So really, this committee is about all of Nevada's kids at whatever level, and we're here to promote better outcomes and kind of a unification of our schools and especially our kids. So thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to be on your committee.
No, thank you very much. It's an honor to have you. We'll just keep going down the roads to Senator Cruz Crawford.
Senator Cruz Crawford here. I represent District 1, North Las Vegas. This is like the Super Bowl for me. I am so excited to be here. I am a lifelong educator. I have taught kindergarten, first grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, middle school reading, and high school math and higher ed. I have been leading my school in beautiful East Las Vegas. I'm on my 10th year and taking a leave as a principal right now, and giving an opportunity for my assistant principal to grow in her career as well. I have been working in the education space for a long time. I got my doctorate in education and with a focus on equity policy, really uncovering some of those issues that we have in regard to retention and recruitment and making sure that the demographics of our students are represented in our teaching staff. And I was really proud in 2021 to pass Senate Bill 352, which was a comprehensive bill due to a research project I conducted with over 4,000 paraprofessionals in the state of Nevada to identify barriers to licensure. And through that, it is now in 37 states, including Puerto Rico, that when a paraprofessional is conducting work that aligns with their student teaching, that they don't have to take off 16 weeks to student teach, because no one has the money to take off 16 weeks to student teach. And if you do, share it over here. And so from starting to testifying at our Commission of Professional Standards under Superintendent Ebert to just being able to have a seat here today is very, very exciting for me. And through that policy work, someone said you should run for Board of Regents. And so I also have the background of being a regent, Senator Titus, and I also had Esmeralda and Nye in my regent area. So I've learned a lot about some of the equity gaps in the rural. So I'm excited to bring that expertise. I'm a lifelong educator, so I'm excited to learn from all of you as well. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Senator. And at the end, my far right and your far left, Senator Buck.
Hello, everyone. I'm so honored to be here and serving the great people in Senate District 5. I always wanted to be a teacher from when I was really little. And so I was grateful that Las Vegas was hiring teachers. And so roundabout Montana State University and then down to where they were hiring 1,500 teachers a year, I became a teacher in Clark County School District. I worked for Clark County School District for 18 years, the last 9 of which I was principal of C.T. Sewell Elementary School. At the time, it was one of the lowest performing schools in the state. And in the trajectory of that school, we implemented a lot of various community partnerships and accountability measures to make it national Title I school by the time 2014 came around. In that time, I won the Milken Award and, like my colleague, received my doctorate degree. Then I was recruited to a charter school, and I didn't know what charter schools really were in the beginning. And at that time, became principal of Pinecrest Academy, and then we grew that to 6 schools. I transferred to the foundation, and now I just help Pinecrest raise money and build community partners in the community for the benefit of our students. And I say that because I have a rich experience in education. I also teach for Touro University and have for about 9 years. I taught for many of the higher education institutions. And I am a kids first person, and so grateful to serve in this committee with my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. So as you can see, we have an esteemed group here. I'm very honored to have them serve with me. Array of experience legislatively, array of experience educationally, and we're going to put all that to work to make some good decisions. Okay, we do have some business to take care of, and in terms of a vote we need to take, and that's to review our committee rules and policies. I'll review some of these, and committee members, you should have them before you, and they're also posted on Nellis for those who may want to follow along. Let's see. Yeah, committee work is governed by the standing Senate rules, and they were adopted on the first day of session, which was on the 3rd. These committee rules that we're going to talk about now simply add some details to the committee meetings. Let's see. Go ahead and let's take a look and review those. They're pretty much in line with the rules that we had before, and not too different than the rules we had in the Assembly. Any questions from? Okay, please.
Madam Chair, I move to accept the committee rules.
Second.
It's been moved. It has been moved by Senator Dondero-Loop and seconded by Senator Cruz Crawford to accept the rules as submitted. All those in favor?
Wait, comment?
Oh, okay, please, go ahead. Yes.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I was just going to say, as much as I hate following the rules, I'll accept the motion.
I consider myself privileged that, that you will do that. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, the motion is carried. And just as a reminder to all of us as committee members, we talked about in our rules being an atmosphere of courtesy and respect, showing up on time, for those who are presenting, getting exhibits in on time, and certainly we commit to you that we will be here and do our work, show up on time, and stay for the duration of the meeting. Okay. Finally, before we get to other things on the agenda, we thought it would be important to share some of the background information about our committee, and there's none better to do that other than our policy analysts. First, we'll start with Ms. Stern Gaynor, and then Mr. Quintero, who is joining us in Las Vegas. So we'll review the background, and it's called the committee brief. Please begin when you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Jen Sturm Gaynor, Committee Policy Analyst, and presenting with me from Las Vegas is my colleague, Mr. Alberto Quintero. Before we begin the presentation, just as a reminder, as nonpartisan legislative staff, we We do not advocate for or against any measure. So Chair Taylor has asked us to provide an overview of the committee brief. Each of you should have a copy of the brief in your materials. They've also been posted to Nellis and are available at the sign-in tables here in each hearing room. So beginning on page 1 of the brief, you will see the committee staff, as well as topics under the jurisdiction of the committee. The Senate Education Committee considers topics that generally reside in Title 34 of the Nevada Revised Statutes. There are also several chapters in Title 33 related to libraries that may be referred to the committee. While the Senate Committee on Finance typically reviews bills pertaining to education finance, measures that have both fiscal and education policy implications may still be considered by the committee. Moving to page 2, during the 2023 session, this committee considered a total of 67 measures. Of those, 49 were voted out of committee and 33 were signed into law. During the 2019 and 2021 sessions, the committee considered just over 80 measures in each of those sessions. So the number of measures referred to this committee has varied in recent sessions, but anticipate hearing approximately 2 or 3 bills per hearing if we follow similar calendar meetings. So I know you're all familiar with the 120-day calendar. As far as the deadlines of particular importance to this committee's work, bills must be passed, if at all, out of the committee of reference in the first house by April 11th and must be passed out of the House of Origin by April 22nd. Bills that originated in the Assembly and referred to this committee must be passed by May 16th and must pass the House by May 23rd. These deadlines apply to bills that haven't been given the exempt status. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to my colleague, Mr. Quintero.
Thank you, Jen. Alberto Quintero, Committee Policy Analyst, Legislative Council Bureau. Pages 2 through 9 of the brief provide a summary of the significant education legislation passed during the 2023 legislative session and the 2021 legislative session. I will not read through each of the measures listed in this section during this presentation. However, I am more than happy to provide additional information on any of these bills following the meeting. To highlight a few, AB 400 of the 2023 session requires a pupil to be retained in grade 3 if the pupil does not obtain a passing reading score or an exemption. The bill requires schools to provide certain intervention services to pupils who are not promoted to the next grade and creates and appropriates $70 million in each year of the biennium for the Early Childhood Literacy and Readiness Account to support for early childhood literacy and readiness programs. The bill also appropriates $7 million in each year of the biennium to the State Public Charter School Authority to award money to a charter school for the transportation of pupils, revises provisions related to the Teach Nevada Scholarship Program, and creates and appropriates $2 million in each year of the biennium for the Nevada Teacher Advancement Scholarship Program. Under the umbrella of accountability, Senate Bill 98 of the 2023 session requires the Superintendent of Public Instruction to establish and report certain performance metrics for public schools. This data must be reported annually to the Governor, the State Board of Education, and the Legislature. The bill also requires the Commission to conduct interim studies concerning school funding and school accountability. Additionally, Senate Bill 425 of the 23 session created the Commission on Innovation and Excellence in Education to develop a statewide vision and implementation plan to improve Nevada's education system. Other topics of note include, but are not limited to, legislation related to school discipline, such as AB 285 and AB 330 of the 23 legislative session, and legislation related to educational personnel, such as SB 442 of the 23 session, which enacted the Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact. There was also legislation related to higher education, such as AB 212 of the 2023 session, which requires the Board of Regents to establish policies allowing current and former students, including those who owe a debt, to access an unofficial transcript and to obtain an official transcript. And AB 245 of the 2023 session, which renamed the Task Force on Sexual Misconduct at Institutions of Higher Education to the Task Force on Power-Based Violence at Institutions of Higher Education, and outlined certain requirements and abilities of the Board of Regents concerning programming on the awareness and prevention of power-based violence. Again, this is not intended to be an all-inclusive list, but if members wish for more information on the listed legislation, I'm more than happy to provide that to you. Next, on page 10 and the top of page 11, There is a section with an overview of the work by the Joint Interim Committee on Education. Included in the section is a link to the committee's final report detailing its 7 meetings, which includes the work session held, and the 50 actions the committee considered. Also included are the 10 approved proposals for legislation by the committee that relate to early childhood education, educational personnel, work-based learning, the closure of schools, and higher education. And with that, I will pass it back to my colleague in Carson City. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jen Sturm Gaynor, again for the record. To finish out the committee brief here, page 11, we have included a list of potential topics the committee may hear during session. Many of these topics were also heard by the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Education. Next is a list of the pre-filed bills referred to the committee. The list included in the committee brief was prepared on January 29th. So since then, we have received a number of other bills, which are not listed there. The brief also outlines a few of the many education-related reports submitted to the legislature starting on page 12. NRS requires over 100 different education reports on matters in education matters in Nevada. So we have not obviously included references to all of them here, but the electronic version of the brief does include links to the statutory requirements of a few examples, and we're absolutely happy to get you any reports of interest to you following the meeting. We have also provided links to the report database maintained by the Research Division Library. If there is a specific report, again, that you're interested in, we're happy to get those for you. On page 13, we have included links to a couple of publications relevant to the work of the committee. The first is the final report of the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Education that Mr. Quintero referenced earlier. This section also includes a link to the report prepared by the Fiscal Analysis Division, providing an overview of school funding in Nevada, and includes a link to the legislative audit reports. Page 14 gives you an idea of the general educational entities in Nevada that make up Nevada's K-12 and higher education systems, such as the State Board of Education, the Superintendent of Public Instruction, the State Public Charter School Authority, the Commission on School Funding, which we'll hear from later on in this meeting, and the NSHE Chancellor. The overview contains the statutory reference for each of these entities and a brief description as well. Finally, on page 15, probably one of our more popular parts of the brief is the education glossary. We have so many acronyms in education, so we thought we'd put an easy reference here for you guys, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stern Gaynor, and thank you, Mr. Quintero. Hopefully, committee members, this will give us some good background, and especially for those who may not come from education, to follow along with the acronyms and the background reports. So hopefully that will be helpful for each of us that are here. Any questions or anything? Anyone? Okay. Thank you so much to the both of you. Okay, we got a lot of housekeeping out of the way, so now we can jump in. We're here for our first. Oh, there we are. Our first presentation is going to come from the Commission on School Funding, and he's going to give us a little background, which will be certainly, hopefully helpful for the committee members, and then some of the findings of the Commission over the interim. Oh, we have 2 presenters. Fantastic. Please. You're just running the PowerPoint. That's okay. Let's introduce yourself, and then we'll turn it over to Mr. Hobbs.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Megan Peterson. I serve as the Deputy Superintendent for the Student Investment Division at the Nevada Department of Education.
Good afternoon to you all. Guy Hobbs, representing the Commission on School Funding. I've served over the past 3 or 4 years as chair. Sounds like we have quite an echo. Is that resolved? Are we good?
No, Mr. Hang on just a moment. We're having our microphones are having a bit of an issue. We'll be some brief reset while we're on around this. We want to make sure that you can hear and that others who may be following along online can do so as well. Hang on, everyone. We have help is on the way, I've been told. The cavalry is coming. So just talk amongst yourselves.
All right, we're going to go ahead and do a mic check in here to test to see what's going on. Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Mic check 1, 2. Check, check. Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay, everyone, it seems as though we can move forward. They're going to continue to work on the system, and in the meantime, we'll be a little bit limited in terms of the camera angles and the view. So you might just have to look at me all meeting. I apologize. Okay, Megan, if you would, please continue.
Thank you, Chair. Deputy Superintendent Megan Peterson for the record for the Department of Education. I serve as the Deputy Superintendent for our Student Investment Division, which oversees the implementation and distribution of PCFP funding, as well as the fiscal components of the over 1,000 grants that we manage, and the accounts payable, contracts, and compliance areas of our department. And I've been working alongside Chair Guy Hobbs for the last year and a half or so in supporting the work of the Commission on School Funding and improving the pupil-centered funding plan. I am here for technical support and moral support for the chair today.
Thank you so much. Chair Hobbs, would you please reintroduce yourself and then get into the presentation when you're ready?
Very happy to, Madam Chair. Again, Guy Hobbs here today representing the Commission on School Funding. I've been with the Commission on School Funding since its inception following the 2019 session and have served as chair for the past 3 or so years, and would like to give you a brief overview of what the Commission has been up to over the past couple of years. Megan, do we have slides ready to go?
Chair Hobbs, we do. You are good to go.
Okay. I cannot see them, but can the committee members see them?
Yes, Chair, we can see them, so please proceed.
Okay. So again, the Commission on School Funding was created in 2019 through the passage of SB 543 and other legislation since that time, including AB 495 in 2021 and the aforementioned AB 400 and SB 98 in 2023, all have formed the mandates to the Commission and defined its tasks. And I will say that the tasks given to the Commission by way of the several pieces of legislation that have formed up the instructions and directions to the Commission have been very thorough. You gave us a lot to do. And as a result of all of the work that was done, we filed a report in both 2022 and this past November, filed another report to address all of the tasks and mandates that were given to the Commission. And the report that was filed this past November was in excess of 500 pages. And so I will do the best I can to summarize what's in those 500 pages in the 12 or so minutes I have left. The next slide gives you a very brief, very truncated summary of the key deliverables that the Commission was given to work on. One of the biggest and most important has to do with optimal funding for education. It was very clearly laid out in the legislation that the Commission was tasked with identifying optimal funding for education in Nevada. And in doing so, the Commission was also tasked with the responsibility of providing a recommendation for funding over a 10-year period. We were also tasked with reviewing and recommending improvements to the various cost adjustment factors for each school district and for small schools, generally reviewing laws and regulations related to education and making recommendations as the Commission may see fit. And very importantly, continue to monitor the implementation of the pupil-centered funding plan and make recommendations. Now, there were a number of other tasks that aren't listed here that I think are also worth pointing out. One of them because certainly one of the members of your committee, it sort of sparked a reminder to me to bring this up. But one of the key tasks that we were also given was to recommend ways that capital needs in some of the smaller school districts, which are our rural school districts, how some of that could be addressed on a going forward basis, given the complexities of funding O&M for schools and the complexities of funding capital for schools. So I did want to mention that as one of our other tasks as well. But also thinking about the key deliverables that we had and speaking to the funding issue first. You know, it's very difficult to look at education funding needs and not take into account the traditional and historical methods of funding education in the state of Nevada. And frankly, it's largely done this way across the country. That includes certain revenue sources as a linchpin for funding education. And you'll see listed on this slide under the notation of modernization of the Nevada tax system, some of those mentioned the sales tax, you know, by way of the local school support tax, that is dedicated for education funding, and property tax by way of the 0.75 across the board uniform ad valorem levy across the state for school operations. Property tax and sales tax both form key traditional and historical funding components for education. And given the magnitude of what I'll show you in a moment in terms of some of the numbers with respect to the gap between where we are today on a per pupil funding basis and where you all may want to be following a 10-year implementation of different funding options, the gap is a fairly challenging one. And so it would certainly require a review. And this is where it may straddle the Committee on Education and some of the other committees that deal specifically with fiscal issues, because it does involve revenue and the creation of revenue sources through the modernization of some of our fiscal systems in the state. And you know, very frankly, both the property tax system in the state and the sales tax system in the state have been put together over many, many years. You all had been talking earlier about the number of sessions that you've been involved with the Nevada Legislature. I can reflect back to the first session where I had some involvement with the session representing Clark County, and that was 1981, which was the year of something that hopefully is still known today, the tax shift. A huge change in the way that things were structured fiscally in the state. I won't spend a lot of time on that at this moment because I know that there are certain time constraints, but over the years since 1981, the number of changes that have occurred within both the property tax and sales tax system are something that warrant the attention of the legislature, if not for funding education, to maintain some level of currency with the way things have changed in our economy over those several decades. The next chart that I hope is up in front of you is a sideways bar chart looking thing. Is that what is there? If so,
yes, it's here. Chair Hobbs, we have
okay.
it.
Again, I can't. I apologize. I can't see any of those. But the three bars that you see at the top, back in 2022, when we put our report together, again, we were tasked at identifying where we are today in terms of per pupil funding and where we objectively should be going to achieve optimal funding. So the top half of this bar chart shows you what the status was in 2022. With funding at $11,200 per pupil in Nevada, and the national average being $15,000, nearly $600 per pupil. What you see listed as subject matter expert recommendation. I thought that there may be those who would look at the national averages not perhaps as meaningful as what Nevada may specifically need, and the subject matter recommendation is that APA, one of the consultants to the state, has recommended funding that is basically right on top of what we would be if we were at the national average. The bottom part of that chart, it updates this to 2025, to current times, the current fiscal year that we're in at the moment. And the funding has indeed increased from the $11,228 per pupil to $13,368. But when you compare that to, again, the national average and the subject matter experts' recommendation, we still are lagging behind. And to quantify that, we would go to the next slide. So if we took that amount of per pupil funding, it's obviously a function of per pupil funding and the number of students enrolled by way of the K through 12 education system in the state of Nevada. What would that mean in additional funding needs over a 10-year period? And that is what this chart is intended to show you. The incremental shortfall would represent the additional amount of funding that would be needed each one of those years to eventually, by year 10, be at parity with the national average in terms of education funding. And you could see that when you look to the right, you see the aggregate shortfall. That's adding up each of the incremental values that would require by the 10th year nearly $2.5 billion of additional funding, again, at the 10th year. So that's a little bit on the optimal funding side. We also looked at a variety of other things, as I mentioned, the Nevada Cost of Education Index and attendance area adjustments. These were things that were specifically assigned to the commission to review and make recommendations on, and we did. Nevada Cost of Education Index to leave it at the current 1.0 for all districts. This is something deserving of additional study. I would be certainly happy to get into this further, but I understand the constraints that you have today on time. Attendance area adjustments, you can see some of the recommendations that were made below with regard to that, so we fulfilled our obligation to make recommendations in both of those areas. With regard to reporting requirements, which would be the next slide, reporting requirements, I'm sorry.
I said we have it.
Oh, okay, thank you. With regard to the reporting requirements, there are really two reasons we wanted to look at this. Well, three. The first one being you asked us to. The second one being we wanted to understand the level of reporting that was being done and be able to eventually do an inventory of all of the data that came from all of that reporting. And the third would be to use that data as a foundation for creating a new performance framework or new reporting framework that would provide you all, the elected decision makers in the state, with the ability to look at that data and make judgments about the return on investment that you're receiving from additional funding that's granted to K through 12 education. That is still something that's in process, but this particular element was an essential part of moving in that direction of building a performance framework. And one of the things that we discovered a number of things. We discovered that between at the school level, at the district level, and at the state level, the number of reports that are being generated were in excess of 500 reports over the course of the year. A lot of those tie back to specific pieces of legislation from prior years. Some of them tie back to federal compliance, and some tie back to administrative requirements. Those reports in aggregate contain a lot of data, a lot of that data that we could probably use in the construction of a performance framework. So we wanted to better understand that. We wanted to understand the reporting timeline. Some of the data is done on a quarterly, some on a monthly, some on a semi-annually, and some on an annual basis. And to get all of that synced up to be meaningful is something else that we focused on. And the eventual goal here, not bypassing each of the bullets on this chart, the eventual goal is to take the data that we have and centrally locate that data and be able to draw on it to, again, provide a foundation for an improved performance reporting framework. With regard to the pupil-centered funding plan, and I know that we're covering a lot in a very short period of time here, but with regard to the pupil-centered funding plan, the first thing we wanted to look at was the actual mechanics of the pupil-centered funding plan. And just to make it short and sweet, the pupil-centered funding plan, compliments to all of you who were involved with it, is working well, and it's working as it was designed to work. So that's the good news. We still have additional work to do on an ongoing basis. It needs to be continually monitored. We want to be able to evaluate that it is meeting all of the objectives each biennium. The weights that are being used are always going to be a matter of discussion. We'll continue to reevaluate those weights and the way that they're applied to either the statewide base or the adjusted per pupil funding amounts, and also the multipliers that are used for weighted funding categories. Now that, in a very short period of time, is intended to provide you with an overview of what is included in a very, like I mentioned earlier, lengthy report that gets very, very specific about some of the things I went over in general terms today. And we, the commission, serve at your pleasure. We're a creature that you created, and we're very happy to provide any assistance that we can by way of the work that's been done to date and included in the reports, and anything else that you may ask or direct us to do. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you so much, Chair Hobbs. And I know the work of the commission is very comprehensive, and it's hard to get your arms around it in such a short period of time. But it will give us an overview for those who may not be familiar with it, and that was our intention today. Committee, I will take questions from any who have questions, and I see that Senator Donante.
Thank you so much, Chair. I have a lot of questions. I'm going to just start with my first one. On the second page, I think it's slide 4. This one deals with optimal funding 10-year plan. That's the slide I'm referring to. One of the things that you mentioned was obviously the modernization of our tax systems, but then phasing out, capping, or eliminating certain abatements or credits that have been instituted or exemptions. This actually came up in our Senate Revenue Committee yesterday of what is the quantification that certain exemptions or abatements look like, for specifically what we have codified in law. Have you all already identified what those tax exemptions that we should relook at, or what has been discussion internally as to how we can start to review things that we instituted maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago?
Thank you very much, Senator, for that question. And I probably should have been clear on that particular slide. But with reference to the abatements, these would not necessarily be, but they obviously could include abatements or deferrals or other things that have been offered by way of support for economic development in the state. What we were focusing on was within the mechanics of how property tax works in the state of Nevada. I can't recall which session, but sometime maybe 10 or 12, maybe more years ago than that, a bill was passed that abated property taxes, that put a cap of 3% on residential property taxes and 8% on non-residential taxes. And the effect of that has been to change the way that the property tax works from a revenue standpoint in the state. The total amount of abatements at this point that are being carried, that aren't being levied, and when I speak about these things, trust me, I don't take these lightly. I understand that we're talking about significant tax policy here, but I'm just looking at it more from a logical perspective. And also from the standpoint of the mandate that we were given. But the current level of abated tax in this state is in excess of $1.5 billion, probably closer to $1.8 billion. And that, if not for the legislation that was passed 12 or so years, however long ago that was, would be revenue that would be flowing in and supporting education and other functions in the state. Now, that isn't to say that that was done without there being a reason to do it. But again, that was our particular focus. And the way the abatement laws work, I'll give you one example that I think has become curious to us and those others that work within the sphere of tax policy, if you will. If you took, let's take an example of a rural county that is at the combined property tax cap. And I would say there are probably 10 or 11 counties in this state, maybe more, that are at the $3.66 combined levy cap. Even if there was a desire on the part of the electorate within those counties to raise property taxes to fund something to do with education, they would not necessarily be able to do it for two reasons. One being the 366 cap. They would have to override that cap, which is a statutory cap. And the second one being the abatement policy wouldn't allow tax bills to go up by more than 3 and 8%, as I mentioned, even if the desire was for that to happen. Now, we're getting into some complex tax areas, but the abatements that we were focused on are those that relate to property tax policy in the state.
Okay, thank you, Senator. You want to follow up now? You want to? Please go ahead.
Okay, just one other follow-up, more on the people-centered funding formula. It's my understanding that we still don't have a stacked funding formula. Is that correct? In terms of the weights and
and Megan will correct me, I'm sure, Senator, wherever I may go wrong. She is very adept at doing that. Whatever the largest weight is in terms of dollars for the student is the one that prevails. So if a student were to qualify for two weights, they're not additive or, as you stated, stacked.
Okay, just wanted to double check that was still correct. Have we identified, so obviously this has been a discussion that I have with a lot of instructors and principals in my district of the importance of doing that, right, to make sure that the student adequately receives the care that they need, because they may qualify as at risk, but they also may be an ELL student, right, et cetera, et cetera. Do we know what it would take to stack the funding formula, or how many dollars we're talking about to adequately deliver on that? I know other states have implemented that, but I don't know if your commission has taken an understanding of what it would take for us to have that policy discussion.
Well, Senator, I'll make some comments and certainly would invite Megan again to add to these. That is something that we've discussed, but with the current level of funding, if the effect of, you used an example of an ELL student that may also be in the at-risk category. If you were to stack those weights for all of the students that would qualify under one or two or more of those weights, it would shift more funding over to those weighted categories at the expense of the base funding per student. And I think the dilemma for everyone is the fact that we are well under the national average in terms of current funding and would be borrowing essentially from base funding, which is lower than a lot of people believe it should be, to give it to the stacked weights. That's the dilemma. So the cure, clearly, and this is the case with so many things, if additional funding was available to enable that, where you also weren't eroding the base funding per student, it would be much easier to do something like that than it is in today's environment. Megan?
Megan Peterson for the record. I believe Chair Hobbs covered it for the most part. There is, outside of a secondary infusion, a significant impact on the amount of funding that would need to be required to do that. We can provide those calculations to support what that would take. But absent that, it would require a redistribution of funds within the model that would significantly reduce the overall base per pupil amount.
Thanks so much to the two of you. I have a couple of more questions and I want to get through them. So I'll ask if your responses can be a little more concise, because we still have two other presentations. We lost quite a bit of time with our technical difficulties. Thank you in advance for that. Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to ask a question. Thank you for the presentation to both of you. Looking back on the bill, you referred to page one a number of bills, and frankly, I had to check where I was in those sessions. I was here, not on the Senate side for the 2019 SB 543 or and I was in the Assembly for that, and AB bill in 2021. I voted no on both those bills, just so you know where I'm coming from. However, the bill that actually gave you the charge that you're presenting to us today was SB 98, which I supported. As a matter of fact, it passed unanimously because we wanted to see exactly where we were going and how this money is. And so the charge that you said to us today was pretty interesting. And on the page where you talked about the funding, so you came back and you said you came up with what we asked you to do. What do other states do? What's the average amount per pupil funding? I'm curious about the metrics that you use for that. So taking in all the other schools, were you using the same comparison of apples and apples, the type of funding that they were receiving in that each of those states that we're averaging out? Or is this just general funds that go to the state? Because there's so many other numbers, especially federal fundings that come into the state. And I'm just wanting to make sure that when you did the comparison, that you used exactly the same metrics and source of fundings. And then I have a follow-up.
Yes, Senator, and I will try to be as concise as possible. The answer is the numbers that we used, and this was something that was of particular importance to me because of all of the different numbers I have heard over the years about per pupil spending in the state and them being computed in different ways. These are apples to apples values. It's consistent from state to state in terms of the dollars that were used to make a comparison to the other states. That I can assure you. And if you would like to spend more time seeing some of the detail on that at your pleasure, I'd be very happy to show that to you.
No, I mean, I appreciate that, but I just want to make sure, again, we're comparing everything. And now, at the same time, at some point, we need to see the outcome data comparing to the spending data. So just because they spend more doesn't mean they have better outcomes. So, and you can, I'm sure, get that to us. And the final question I have, in the bill that I did support, one of the chapters says that your job was to look at the allocation of additional funding to the Nevada State Infrastructure Bank and implementation of changes to the statute as necessary to permit it to provide financial assistance to smaller school districts. Did you do any of that?
Senator, again, absolutely, and again, trying to be mindful of the chair's directions, be concise. The answer is yes, we did, and that is in the report. I'm happy to go over, again, at your convenience.
Is that
the
in
details.
today's report?
It's in the report. Again, Guy Hobbs, I apologize. It's in the report that we filed this past November. There is a chapter in the report that is specific to the point that you're raising.
All right, great. So maybe perhaps staff can find that for us and highlight that, because I would like to see what the result of it were on that one. And thank you very much, Madam Chair, for the questions.
Appreciate that. We're going to keep going now to Senator Denderoloup. You yield. Thank you very much. Senator Cruz Crawford.
Thank you, Chair. Senator Cruz Crawford, for the record, question Mr. Guy Hobbs. Thank you so much for this work. I really appreciate it. Were there any recommendations in the report that spoke about how much funding should go toward building facilities, teachers, in regard to the per pupil?
Again, Guy Hobbs, Commission on School Funding. You raise a very interesting point that has concerned me throughout all of this. The capital facilities associated with K through 12 education were not a part of the charge, other than that which Senator Titus mentioned a moment ago. The particular and peculiar issues and challenges that the rural school districts have with regard to acquiring capital to support education. That was specifically addressed to us. The broader school facilities, other capital assets, types of challenges were not a part of the charge to us. The per pupil spending that you see is essentially non-capital per pupil spending.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I know in CCSD we get about $6,102 as a elementary school principal, and then stratified from that at the 12,000. So I appreciate that, and I look forward to learning more about the report.
Mic issues again. Thank you so much. Quick question for me, and then we'll move on. And just reminding that we want to focus on the policy, and then let the finance committee focus on the funding. Oh, I have another one right here. All right, here we go. We'll try it this way. Just quickly, on page 5, Megan, this may be for you. On page 5, that's on slide 5, I should say, the number for towards the bottom for Nevada. In our handout, we have 12,579. In the slide, have the $13,000 number. So if you wouldn't mind giving us an update, or did I miss that?
Madam Chair, I'd be happy to address that. The 13,368, and apologize for any confusion between handouts and what may be showing on the slide, also includes the the funding commitments that were made during the last legislative session. That would be the proper number.
Thank you, Chairman Hobbs. And Megan, thank you so much. We appreciate the report. Thank you for taking the time. Committee, thank you for the questions. We will move on now, and I believe we have the Nevada Department of Education next to come forward, State Superintendent and her team. Welcome, Superintendent Ebert and team.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor, Vice Chair Dondero Loop, members of this esteemed Senate Education Committee. For the record, my name is Joan Ebert. I'm honored to serve as the State Superintendent of Public Instruction for the great state of Nevada. To my right, I have Deputy McGill, and to my left, I have Deputy Dixon, and you have already met our amazing Deputy Peterson. We stand at a crossroads in education, and while the world around us is transforming at an unprecedented pace, our education system feels stuck in the past. We're preparing students for a future we can barely imagine, using methods that are increasingly outdated. This isn't a criticism of our dedicated educators, many of whom are doing extraordinary work each and every day within a system that needs fundamental change. It's a call to action, a recognition that we must adapt to survive and thrive in an innovative learning environment. On this slide, we just provided you the fast facts from our Nevada report card. This is the data from last year, but the numbers have not changed very much, with almost 27,000 educators in our system, as well as 480,000 students. On that slide, you noted and have the information regarding our proficiency and math rates for English language arts, and you can clearly see that less than half of our students are proficient. So how do we solve for this problem in front of us? The answer lies in transforming how we educate. The good news is we have the tools, the frameworks to make a lasting change. By integrating personalized competency-based learning, utilizing multi-tier systems of support, ensuring accountability, and learning from what's already working, we can build an education system that meets the needs of every student. It's not just about students earning a diploma. It's about giving them the skills, the knowledge, and the confidence to thrive in life. As we move forward today, I hope we can all reflect on what we can do in our own spheres of influence to build an education system that's more than just a pass or fail system. It's about building a future where every student, no matter their background, has the opportunity to succeed. So let's dive in together. We can turn the tide on the issue and ensure that education is the powerful tool that it's meant to be for our students and our economy. Today, I'm highlighting 4 key initiatives that we believe will help the Nevada Department of Education and the entire state to move into the future. First, PCBL, another acronym, Personalized Competency-Based Learning. Second, enhancing systems through multi-tier systems of support. Third, strengthening accountability to ensure that every child is in a successful learning environment. And fourth, building on our achievements while addressing ongoing challenges. The first initiative I'm going to cover is our personalized competency-based learning, because for far too long, memorizing facts have been prioritized over our critical thinking, our problem solving, the analytical skills that we need to make sure our students are equipped with to thrive in today's society. We need to foster their curiosity, encourage questioning, and empower students to become independent learners. The world needs innovators, they need creators, they need problem solvers, and we have this in the vision of the Nevada Portrait of a Learner. This initiative cultivates key competencies, critical thinking, communication, adaptability, social and emotional skills, and it empowers our students for success in this changing world. This collaborative framework involved and was developed by Nevadans for Nevadans. It was our educators, our administrators, our families, our communities. We have over 100 partners that were engaged in this work. And we look forward to sharing all of our recommendations as we have 6 school districts and schools within the Clark County School District and Washoe County School District that are participating in this project. Next, multi-tier systems of support. In this initiative, we're making sure that at the state level, we follow the model within districts and schools that we work collaboratively to improve student outcomes. For those of you that are not familiar, multi-tier systems of support helps ensure the following key concepts. First, early interventions and cost savings. Multi-tier systems of support focuses on identifying and addressing academic and behavioral issues early, particularly through Tier 1 universal core instruction. By investing high-quality preventative instruction for all students, schools can reduce the need for more expensive, intensive interventions that may occur in Tier 2 and Tier 3. This proactive approach can result in long-term cost savings by minimizing the number of students who require costly or expensive one-on-one support. By doing so, we can improve our student outcomes and accountability. We also can ensure that we're supporting every student equitably. Here you see a snapshot of the district's success in implementing MTSS. 81% of implementing districts saw moderate to significant impact on their district's capacity and readiness to implement multi-tier systems of support. 85% experienced positive impact in the use of evidence-based practices to teach and support our students. 95% of implementing districts reported significant impact with cohesion and alignment of strategies and interventions. And finally, across the board, our districts are implementing with fidelity. We saw improved academic performance, social and emotional learning growth, and positive behavioral changes. Our third initiative I'm going to highlight is how we must innovate, the way our system holds students, educators, school districts, and the state accountable for educational outcomes that prepare Nevada for the future. First, to support student accountability. Effective Tier 1 instruction enables students to succeed on standardized assessments, while formative assessments go deeper, measuring critical thinking skills and analysis. These assessments provide meaningful feedback to both the students and the teachers, helping to refine instruction and enhance learning. Second, for school accountability. The Nevada Report Card is a public reporting system that provides information about the state's public schools. It's a tool to help ensure accountability and transparency in Nevada's education system. This includes our school ratings, student achievement, school discipline, attendance rates, school designations, and educator qualifications. Third, for district and state accountability, acing accountability holds us responsible to our stakeholders. During the last legislative session, the legislature and Governor Joe Lombardo committed to $2.6 billion in increased funding for K-12 education. This historical investment led to the creation of this new initiative called Acing Accountability. The aim of this framework is to ensure that this historical increase is directly tied to student performance and answers 6 key questions. Are school districts and the SPCSA effectively implementing reading and mathematics resources? Are kindergarten through grade 3 students demonstrating progress toward mastery and literacy? Are grades 4 through 8 students demonstrating growth and proficiency in mathematics? Are high school graduates prepared for success in college or career? Do school districts and the SPCSA have the workforce to meet the needs of every student? And finally, are school districts and the SPCSA using innovative solutions to meet the unique needs of their students? This slide presents proficiency for the 8 years on the Smarter Balance assessments for grades 3 through 8 in English Language Arts. You can see that for the past school year, 23-24, the state proficiency rate saw a slight increase of 0.3 percentage points from the previous year. The gap on this slide and the next slide is due to the pandemic, where the assessments were waived. Moving on to mathematics, this slide presents proficiency for the last 8 years on the Smarter Balance assessment. Since the pandemic in school year 1920, Nevada students in mathematics performance has improved each year, and most recently, student performance saw a 1.3 percentage point increase in school year 23-24. All student groups made growth in mathematics in the state of Nevada. Holding steady for a 3-year trend, you see our current graduation rate is 81.6, and then we also included the data for each individual school district, their graduation rates for the last few years as well. The fourth and final point I'm highlighting today is the strategy of building our strengths and following our strengths so that they can follow with our students the next few years. In regard to academic proficiency, Nevada's 3rd through 8th grade students demonstrated measurable academic progress in the 23-24 school year, according to our assessments. We know that for 2 consecutive years, all grade levels and student groups excelled in mathematics, and gains were observed among all demographic groups. For career and technical education, the graduation rate for career and technical education students has risen significantly. From the class of 2020, which was 93.2%, to the class of 2024, which is now 96.9%. Chronic absenteeism. Nevada's chronic absenteeism rate improved significantly during the last school year, decreasing from 34.9% to 25.9%, a total of a 9% improvement. For our early childhood programs, we expanded, thank you very much for all of your support, the $140 million to expand pre-K seats and have innovative learning environments for our youngest learners for high quality education. It's the first time as a state we've been able to provide seats for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. The Early Childhood Literacy Readiness Program, we awarded over $88 million to support and improve early childhood programs. Teacher recruitment and retention, this is a huge area. From 2019 to 2023, instructional staff increased by 22%, and tuition reimbursements rose by 122%. So this has reflected our targeted efforts to strengthen and expand the teacher workforce. Over the past year, the teacher attrition decreased from 12.5% to 8.7%, which is a 30% year-over-year improvement that underscores the progress our teacher retention efforts have made. NDE is proud to have improved teacher recruitment by incentivizing teacher pathways and forging effective public-private partnerships. We have an additional 1,200 students in our classrooms this year because of the funding that the legislature allocated. So thank you very much. School safety as well. Nevada's Safe Voice program, as you know, is an anonymous tip line designed to enhance student safety, health, and well-being. To date, the program has demonstrated measurable success in violence reduction, including a 32% decrease in violence against staff and weapon possession. Schools reported significant improvements in climate, fostering a more positive environment for learning. So I'm going to end this presentation this afternoon, with the tangible opportunities we still need to improve our system. I shared the teacher recruitment, over 1,200 more teachers this year. We still have over 1,000 vacancies across our state, and we're partnering with our higher education system to make sure that we can fill the vacancies. As teachers retire, we have about 2,300 positions open a year across the state, and right now, higher education system is graduating about 800 students a year. So we need to close that gap and working collaboratively with our higher education system partners. The rates of suspension and expulsion. Suspension and expulsion disrupt learning, lower student engagement, and can lead to long-term academic setbacks, especially for marginalized groups who face these actions more often. We have high rates of exclusionary discipline, also harm overall, which affects our entire school performance and creates a less inclusive environment. The 2022-23 and 23-24 data reveal that persistent disparities in suspension and expulsion rates among racial and ethnic groups. Black students face disproportionality high rates in both, Black students face disproportionality high rates in both, while Hispanic students are the largest group, and they're overrepresented in expulsions only. This pattern highlights the challenge that we have in achieving equitable disciplinary practices and underscore the need for targeted interventions to address these disparities. For the Nevada Department of Education, our staffing levels, we are doing a research project with an outside vendor to compare our staffing levels with other departments across the United States. We currently have 219 staff members that work extremely hard on behalf of all of our children and are very passionate about the work. But we know that the limited staffing capacity impacts the department's capacity to implement Tier 1 supports at our level, supporting our schools, supporting our school district superintendents, and we need to address these educational priorities across our state. Our chronic absenteeism rate, again, celebration, but 25.9% chronic absenteeism, which means that the students have missed 10% or more of their enrolled school days per year without a valid excuse. When students miss school, they miss opportunities to engage in learning, and we know that they need to be present with their colleagues, with their teachers to do amazing work. You just finished a presentation in regard to the historic funding increase, and you can still see the gap that is there just to reach the national average. So as we look to the future of education in our state, we know we must evolve to meet the needs of every learner. Competency-based learning is not just a new approach. It's a transformative shift toward personalized, student-centered education that empowers every student to progress at their own pace in tandem with a shift. Our multi-tiered systems of support ensures that no child is left behind, offering the right level of intervention and enrichment at the same time. Together, these systems create the foundation of equity. Every student has the right to an amazing education in our state. We know that these advancements can't happen, and we know that there are challenges, and we must remain steadfast in our commitment to accountability, holding ourselves to high standards while ensuring that our efforts are consistently making a meaningful difference in student outcomes. Accountability is not about blame. It's about how we take action with the information that we have to ensure that every child, regardless of their background, has the opportunity to succeed. I also would like to include, and I know it's not in our presentation today, but 3 of the members on the dais sit on the Nevada Commission on Innovation and Excellence in Education. What we have presented to you here this afternoon also integrates with that report that is coming out, as well as I know Vice Chair Senator Dondero Loop will be providing you with that information, and I just want to make sure that we make a hard connection with what we've presented. Lastly, we know that we cannot overlook the critical role that our funding plays in achieving these goals. Adequate, equitable funding is the backbone of every initiative and innovation we strive for. We must continue to advocate for the financial resources needed to make our vision for education a reality. Together with a clear commitment to competency-based learning, multi-tier systems of support, accountability, and sustainable funding, we can create an education system where every student is equipped to succeed today, tomorrow, and for future generations to come. Let's move forward, united in purpose, with the unwavering belief that education is the key to unlocking a brighter future for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. We do have a couple of questions so far, and certainly we're open for any other member of the committee who has a question. We'll start with Senator Donante.
Thank you, Chair. I was having issues with my mic, so hopefully it doesn't die on me. Really quickly, just more for clarification purposes, chronic absenteeism, do you have a live dashboard that tracks absenteeism day to day, or is that something data that you're able to provide? And does it stratify based on race, ethnicity, and county or school district? Is that something that you guys have?
Superintendent Ebert, for the record, we do not have a day-to-day dashboard. That I do know that some of our school districts do, but we do not maintain that data at the state level. We do it as an annual report.
Okay, thank you. The reason I would love to chat offline with you about what policy we can do to help you get to that point, and maybe developing statewide strategies. I'm sure you already have some. The reason why I'm mentioning this is there's obviously a lot of fear in my district of students not coming to school because of national rhetoric, and I want to make sure that we are on top of that. Maybe if we can have her, if the chair would like, maybe we can have them come back mid-session and see what we're hearing from the school districts on this subject, but that was just my main recommendation. I'm happy to chat offline about it.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Madam Superintendent. We'll go to Senator Cruz Crawford.
Thank you, Chair. Senator Cruz Crawford for the record. Hello, Superintendent Ebert. Quick question. You had said chronic absenteeism is counts if they don't have a excused absence. So I know on my data dashboard, if they have a medical, it still shows up as an absenteeism. So can you just clarify what is reported? Because I want to know if it's actual numbers or medical, because 24%, even though I'm sitting at 24 at my school, is still a lot, right? It's 1 out of 4.
Superintendent Ebert, for the record, thank you for allowing me to clarify. For the federal reporting, all of when a student misses a course, it is counted in the chronic absenteeism for our federal reporting. During the last legislative session, Senator Dondero Loop had put forward a bill that the students can be excused, actually, and Senator Taylor as well, for specific religious reasons, and that is still captured in the data, but it is not captured at the school level for reporting purposes.
Thank you so much. I think it's important we communicate with our community, because a lot of parents do keep their kids home for medical reasons, and they think that it doesn't affect the star rating. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And then finally, we go to Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question, and thank you all for being here. And I know you work really hard to help our kids succeed and do better. Hopefully I'm on, but looking at the national averages and your presentation, your graduation rate on page 6 of the presentation. So the statewide, I'm concerned that the statewide 4-year graduation rates compared to 22, 23, and 24 actually have gone down, if anything. And then looking at the national averages, we're still the 46th, maybe the 45th in the nation on average graduation rate. But comparing that, and I know this is the policy committee, but we started off this policy committee with a funding presentation. And so looking at the funding compared to national average, we actually have gone up in our funding, but yet I'm seeing worse outcomes. So how does that work?
Thank you, Superintendent Ebert. For the record, for graduation rates, there's nothing when you compare nationally, apples to apples. So your question earlier in regard to funding, making sure it was apples to apples. For graduation, it is not apples to apples. Nevada has our graduation rates, or requirements. Indiana has different requirements. California has different requirements. Utah has. So we cannot compare apples to apples because the requirements behind that data is different. What?
Can I get a clarification on that? When the graduation rates are not used in any federal funding or any performance things when we get evaluated as a state for more monies, so we can't compare our graduation rates with other states that graduation rates that we're using as better performers than us then? Is that what you're telling me?
Superintendent Ebert, for the record, we use, and I actually brought up, because as we were preparing for this presentation, I have a slide from another presentation I did not too long ago. In 2011, do you know what our graduation rate was for Nevada? Which isn't too long ago. 62.6%. That's a good question. I do not have that information right in front of me. But since that time, we've been climbing greatly. We've had great progress, and there are many different components. You'll see funding be in 2015 when other funding was made available, more funding was made available in 2015. You'll see an increase there. And the funding that you just made available, I truly believe that this graduation and this cohort and the data that you'll see is going to be above what we've seen in decades. The funding that was made available during the last legislative session has really only hit the schools by the time this data came out for 6 months, because you allocate in July, and by the time they get all their programs in place, it's only really 6 months. So by this spring, you should have data. We will all have data that shows great progress based on the funding.
Great, and fair enough, and I appreciate the explanation. Real quick, just last question, I promise, Madam Chair.
Last question.
You brought up 2011 and 62%, but before you said that, when you look at other states' comparison graduation rates, they're different. So did you use a different metrics to define? Has that changed in 2011 to 2024, how you're measuring graduation rates, since you said it changes anyway?
Superintendent Ebert, for the record, yes, the graduation requirements have changed from 2011.
So that's not even, that's not fair comparison. So just leaving that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh.
Very much. So finally, a comment we'll have from Senator Dunderloop, and then the next presentation, be prepared to come forward.
So just really quick to jump on with the superintendent so that Senator might understand as well. Like, our students in Nevada need 22.5 credits to graduate. Am I correct? Is that still the same?
Depending on which diploma.
Right,
yes.
right. But in Utah, it would be different. California does local units. So you can't, it's not like every state needs 22.5 credits per child. And that's one of the reasons that it becomes very hard to standardize that. Because in Utah, if they need 24 credits, and Arizona might need, 20 credits, and somebody, right? It becomes very hard to standardize that.
Great, thank you for that, because just follow up on that comment then, so perhaps we should be see better test scores compared to other states then that are taking the same exact test, as opposed to graduation.
That also is a little bit of a Charlie Foxtrot, but that's for another discussion.
I was just going to say,
Thank you very much,
I was going to say on that point, I will jump in and we'll have that conversation at a different time, although it is policy, so I will give you that. It is policy, but it's policy for another day. Thank you so much, Superintendent and staff. We appreciate that, and then we will at this time encourage and ask the Nevada Association of School Superintendents to come forward. So our final presentation, they'll present on investing in Nevada's education, students and teachers, or the INVEST report. So we will turn it over to you, and please, gentlemen, begin when you are ready. Remember, state your name and your affiliation as you begin.
Well, good afternoon, committee. It is our honor and privilege to be here this afternoon as representatives of Nevada Association of School Superintendents. My name is Adam Young. I'm the president of the organization this year, and the superintendent in White Pine, referencing a couple of the esteemed senators up there, lifelong Nevada residents, local graduate, UNLV master's and bachelor's degree graduate, and just proud of public education in Nevada. Over here, Superintendent Joe Ernst from Washoe County School District. To my right, Tate Eltz, Superintendent of Eureka County School District. And over here, our fiscal expert, AJ Fueling, Superintendent of the Carson City School District. We are, again, honored to be here today. We're going to get our tech working here. There we go. So just a quick background, and we'll be mindful of our time. The Nevada Association of School Superintendents does represent each school district in the state. We are proud of our collaboration and proud to also count as a partner the State Charter Authority, and also appreciative of the hard work that Superintendent Ebert, her staff, and the Nevada Department of Education do on behalf of all of the students in our state. We also want to thank you for your service, your energy, your commitments, the willingness to be a partner with us. And just acknowledge that we truly believe that public education changes lives. Senator Titus, you mentioned some of these metrics, and we're going to talk about some of those a little bit later in this presentation. But more than anything else, when a student is changed by a teacher, that change lasts forever. And it changes the trajectory of a student's life. Every one of us in this room can think of a teacher who made a difference in our lives, even a counselor, a principal, sometimes even a superintendent. So we just acknowledge that public education is a really magical thing. Just a little bit of background on INVEST. This actually goes back, collectively working together as superintendents, clear back to 2003. One of the items with the legislature's support and the executive branch's support that we feel real proud of, which Mary Przinski always has to remind me, it took a decade to get this done, is full-day kindergarten. This was in INVEST's first platform in 2003, and it took a long time to get there. So we recognize that some of the things that we may say today, we may be a few steps away from, but we believe in the power of working together and that we will get these things done to move education forward in Nevada. Superintendent Eltz.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Young. Thank you, members of the committee. We really appreciate allowing us to be here today. My name is Tate Eltz. I'm the superintendent of Eureka County School District, and I'm going to talk very briefly, I promise I'll be very concise, on INVEST priority number 5, which happens to be the increasing needs of mental health and social emotional needs in our schools. Teachers, educators in general are tasked with such a hard challenge right now. Our students are coming with decreased skills in emotional regulation, attending abilities, phonological and phonemic awareness, decreased vocabulary skills, and the job of our teachers is becoming more and more challenging every single day. So to piggyback off of what Superintendent Ebert spoke about earlier with the MTSS systems, we would like to acknowledge some of the great things that have happened up to this point, and school districts, I think, have been very, very creative. We have 17 very diverse school districts and needs for these supports. I know some school districts are able to have a social worker in each school. I know in my small rural school district, we have one counselor for the entire district, and she has to drive 2.5 hours between a couple of her schools. So it's just very, very unique needs. But we have some great things that have been growing, especially raising your own for support staff in these positions. So we need more help. We need more help to continue to do that. So we appreciate your time and thank you.
You may want to switch chairs.
If I,
You may want to.
I'll crowd.
Yeah, no, you may want to switch chairs. Thank you. That's at the kids' table. That one on the end.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Andrew Fueling, AJ Fueling, other known as. For the record, I'm the superintendent for Carson City School District, otherwise known as the CCSD. So the next item, one of the priorities is, and has been talked about, I feel like Guy Hobbs, the young man down in Vegas that did his presentation earlier, he could have just done a mic drop and done my portion here of this presentation. But two of the items that have already been discussed, the needs for capital funding for safety and otherwise providing environments that are conducive to education and education in the modern world. You'll notice here we have some photos of some amazing facilities across our state. However, in the lower right-hand corner, you have the wheelchair ramp in White Pine County in one of their schools. Now, in many other places, we would call those stairs. But the point being that there are many places in our schools across the state that simply do not have the funds to make accommodations that are necessary for students. So the first priority, looking at funds to design environments that are safe, secure, and student-centered for the modern world, for the future of learning. And then also making sure that we have the operational and maintenance needs that can be covered for schools and districts across the state. As Mr. Hobbs mentioned, the tax structure in the state has made this more and more difficult over time. So this just gives a sense. This is a slide from a Gwynn Center presentation, but the numbers were already reviewed, but at least to give you a sense of nationally what funding looks like on a per pupil basis across the different states, to give you a sense of where Nevada lies right now, and clearly making strides, and very, very grateful for the last legislative session and the funding that came to the states. But as Mr. Hobbs stated, there's still room to go. This graph is kind of a strange one, but it gives you, the red is the percentage of the state's general fund that is appropriated to education. The far left-hand year is 1970, and then the next one, it jumps to 2010. But just to give you a sense of, and 1970 is the earliest data that I can find, but almost 50% of the state's general fund was appropriated to K-12 education. And over time, that has decreased. It had always been the largest portion of the state's budget until recently, where Health and Human Services has exceeded that. Hopefully, with the requirements of SB 543, matching the increase of the state's general fund appropriation to K-12 education to what the Economic Forum projects for revenue growth for the state's general fund, will help that here over the next session. One thing that I know will be on legislators' minds is the SB 231 from the last session. The funding that was given specifically to help with certified and classified staff to increase salaries, which clearly has helped retention and recruitment across the state. And every district in their fashion got those funds to staff, and those payments continue now through the rest of this fiscal year. There are concerns on our side about the methodology of distribution, just given what it was the last time, and how that will translate into the next allocation. If it continues, oh, could you go back, sorry. The uncertainty of a need for matching funds, that could be very problematic in this year, and then how those funds end up flowing through the PCFB. So again, optimal funding, as you heard, was the term. We are in lockstep with the Commission on School Funding in terms of the desire to get to that optimal funding level. At some point, that will require a change in tax policy. There's really no way around that. And as far as the weights are concerned, as funding grows, continuing to fully fund those, and really the point was brought up about the stacking, and just pointing out that, you know, we think of if a student that's an English learner, if we assume, I think just because of there being weights, that if a student is an English learner, there are English learner funds being given to districts to go help that student. And that is simply not the case the way it is currently set up. So if that English learner would also have some type of special education service that they're qualified for, you're receiving funding to help provide those special education services, but not for the English learner services. Now those services are being provided. It's not as if they don't happen, but there's not funding necessarily coming with that student to provide those services.
Thanks, AJ. Superintendent Ebert talked at length and very passionately.
Your name for the record.
Sorry, Adam Young for the record. Thank you, Chair, for that. Superintendent Ebert spoke very passionately about some of the work that has gone on in our state over the last few years to modernize and innovate. As was mentioned, 3 of you are on the Commission on Innovation. I was honored to be a part of that commission as well. And as we move through this next very short section of the presentation, I just want to highlight how aligned our Invest platform is with these recommendations that are coming through from the Commission on Innovation. We are so excited about this work and feel that there is momentum and that there's an opportunity to truly transform education in Nevada into a future forward type of a system. No, you're fine, Superintendent Ernst. So it was brought up by Superintendent Ebert, this idea of personalized competency-based learning. We also kind of refer to that as learner-centered opportunities, future-ready opportunities. And on that previous slide, you can see that there's been tons of international research that highlights the types of durable skills, transferable skills, that employers want to see come out of our education system. Right now, it could be argued that these skills are maybe acquired by students kind of on accident, maybe, or at least not intentionally. Part of the work of the CIEE and what many districts are focusing on right now is how do we intentionally focus on building these skills for our students so that they're ready for whatever faces them in the future, career, thriving, college, whatever that is. That's a very, very different type of a model of education than I think what traditionally has been expected in our schools. And go ahead, one more there. So I just want to mention a couple of these as well. Superintendent Ebert spoke of some of them. But the portrait of a learner and these questions that have been collaboratively developed across the state, this same concept exists in many of our school districts and in many schools. We have this Nevada network that's been working for the last 3 years or so that brings educators across systems together to collaboratively figure out how do we change our system to focus on these some of these types of things. The innovative solutions metric that's part of acing accountability, this is something that allows districts to show things that don't show up in the traditional accountability system. So Senator Titus, back to your point, there are so many things that go on in our schools that are amazing, that our students are doing, our educators are doing, but they don't show up in any place that's measured. And we feel like that needs to change, that if some of those stories are told, then some of the narrative around what education is perceived to be in Nevada can be very, very different than what they are right now. So this priority for us is, what do we do together as leaders in our state to change the policy? Because Senator Taylor, this is a policy committee. So what are the policies that need to change that enable these school systems to thrive and don't get in the way of the good work that educators want to do? Because frankly, there are policies that cause decisions to be made that maybe aren't helpful for the system and that cause some of the problems that we currently have. So we are strong advocates that these CIE recommendations, when they come down, provide a really great roadmap for the next couple years about how Nevada can do this together and make a system that is ready for the future of our state. I already said that. We'll go on.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Ernst. I'm superintendent of Washoe County School District. Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for having us here today. You know, we had a little bit of a conversation earlier around data, and I think I heard a great expression in terms of how far we want to go into that, and appreciate that fully. Couple of things that I think are worth mentioning and are consistent with Superintendent Ebert's presentation today, and that is simply that progress is being made. When you look at ELA scores, when you look at MAP scores as well, we're seeing demonstrated indicators of academic progress, and we're seeing signals that improvements are being made while there's plenty of room to grow even more. Also, interestingly enough, as my colleague pointed out, the frameworks that we use to measure success, there may be opportunities as we continue to look at accurately quantifying the work that's taking place in schools. For example, when you look at the importance of early childhood education, there's been a number of comments about that earlier today. Fundamentally, as educators, we believe that that is one of our real key places to help move forward education. Yet, when we look at the frameworks of which schools are being measured, you don't see early childhood metrics in there. Yet, we know that that's really a foundational piece to going forward. You also look at safety and belonging, as Superintendent Else mentioned, just the critical needs that are facing us around mental health needs. And perhaps, again, as we look to get innovative with the ways in which we are quantifying the progress that's being made in education, perhaps there's opportunity as well there, recognizing early childhood education, mental health. Those are critical to students' academic success. Going on, you know, there was some questions about national measures and comparison measures. I do think the NAEP test, the National Assessment of Educational Progress, is really one of those measures that we've had that's been around since 1998. It's just come out this week in terms of NAEP scores, and certainly there is a good deal to learn from those scores as we dive in. Again, as we reflect on progress that's being made here in Nevada and throughout our school districts, when you look at Nevada scores in reading, math, again, this is a 4th and 8th grade test with randomized samples of classrooms. But you look at the Nevada scores compared to the U.S. average, and you can see progress. And so, again, I think one of the opportunities that is available to us is often data can become fairly isolated in the ways in which we look at it. And by being able to round out our look at the entirety of the data sets that we have, I think it helps paint a better picture for us around the work that's occurring. Again, we recognize disproportionality in academic outcomes, and we certainly know that this is important charge for us as educators. And we know that a great deal of work has been done to start to close achievement gaps. And so, again, when you look at 22 to 24 NAEP scores, you can see that there has been progress. Again, I look at these as perhaps some leading indicators, some opportunity for us to think about progress that's being made, investments that have gone towards that progress, and continuing with those investments to continue to make progress that we're seeing in various data sets. This one here is chronic absenteeism. Again, Superintendent Ebert spoke to that. Certainly having our students there every day is really critical to improving student outcomes. When you look at the category on the left and you see the minus, that's really progress being made. So as Superintendent Ebert indicated, we've improved our chronic absenteeism rate by about 10% as a state. That's a step in the right direction. And another thing I think that can be worth understanding, again, as we round out the ways in which we're looking at absenteeism data, there's also the average daily rate of attendance, and I think that's an important something. I think sometimes when we look at chronic absenteeism, perhaps there can be some accidental misunderstandings around, does that mean 25% of the students are out on any given day? And no, our average daily attendance rate across the state really hovers between 92 and 93% of our students attending school every day. And so I'd just like to try to make that distinction as we again are trying to kind of get our hands all the way around the data. Not to say that chronic absenteeism is not an essential area of which we need to address. It really is a key stepping stone. I had a real fortunate incident or a visit to a school earlier this week, and I got to visit with a student who last year had over 100 absences at this school. This young fourth grader this year has 20 absences. This student will be deemed chronically absent. However, when we look at the progress that this student is making, it is really important that we really try to recognize progress within these measures to understand them in full. Looking forward, I think there's also, you can see this is really around our post-secondary preparation and the great efforts that have been described earlier, along with CTE programming. I know in Washoe County School District, we've been able to move our CTE up to over 1,700 students completing that. And really, the other thing that's happening right now as we're looking at rounding out educational experiences for all of our students, there's a couple of ways. We're looking at dual credits. I think dual credits are really a frontier of which we see are being explored in really positive ways for our students and helping our students get to the workforce perhaps a bit more quickly than they would without access to some of those dual credits. In Washoe County School District, we've looked at increasing our internships. This year alone, we've been able to move. Last year, we had 20 internships with local business partners. This year, we're already over 100 internships, on-the-job experiences for credit. And so what we're speaking to here is the understanding that our educational system directly connects to our workforce and the economy of which we're trying to grow.
I'm gonna have to ask you to move.
Pardon me.
You're 15 minutes over.
Pardon me.
So I'm gonna
Pardon
have
me.
to ask you to.
My apologies. I'm done with my section.
Okay,
and
sorry. I know you're
apologize.
passionate about it. I get it. I'm passionate about it too, but we're late.
We will conclude in 1 minute. I want to point this slide out to Senator Dondero Loop and Senator Cruz Crawford as former educators. This pressure is real. We have to change this mindset if we want students to thrive. And Superintendent, if you want to snip forward there a couple more. These slides are meant to represent all of the amazing work that students do that don't get captured in some of the metrics that Superintendent Ernst just shared with you. And to conclude then, you can go forward a couple more there. The last priority, which all of what Superintendent Ernst was talking about, and consistent with what Superintendent Ebert said in the CIE recommendations, if we can shift the way that some of these things are measured in schools, people default to what they're measured by. They really do. And if we can measure some things that might be more important and that actually are already doing and people are doing well, then it shows us a different picture. And I think it's a more accurate picture, and certainly a picture that I'm very proud of. I think you will be too. So thank you for your time today.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Sorta. Any questions? Any questions from the committee? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and
Senator
thank you for
Titus.
moving us along. I appreciate the presentation, appreciate what you folks are doing and what you're trying to do. Internships. Very interested in internship, maybe a quick cover of that. Are we doing internships with the students, doing internships outside the school, like apprentice programs type of thing? Or are you helping the teacher pipeline and bringing interns and getting the teachers to come into your schools? I know the good senator to my left was mentioning that in his school they had the junior students maybe working in the preschool programs, and then as seniors they could go shadow a teacher. So when you said internships, what do you mean?
Thank you very much for the question, Joe Ernst. For the record, I think all of the above. I think we are looking to grow our teacher pipeline by similar programs that were mentioned to you, and also for our juniors and our seniors, getting them out working in Renown, working with other businesses to get on-the-job experience and getting credit for that so that they're gaining more experience that way. So trying to just round out those experiences.
Great, thank you. I do appreciate stackable credits, you know, those kind of things, giving kids credits for that. And then I love the dual enrollment programs. It's huge, especially in rural areas. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Buck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last session, I had a bill that minimized the impact of attendance on students or on schools, actually, because I always thought that was one of those things where we have schools that it honestly punishes the Title I most disadvantaged students when you're double hitting them, I guess. And there are schools in the Title I space that have actually moved the needle, and they're not recognized because they get done on the attendance, the impact of the attendance. And so I was just wondering, do you see that in your data as far as attendance impacting, especially the Title I schools? Is there a link there?
Thank you, Senator Adam Young, for the record. And I think the answer to that question is, in speaking for all of our districts, we certainly notice that as a problem. As superintendents, we have been quite strident on changing the chronic absentee parameters to honor schools who are making progress, but who might still fall short of the points that are earned in the NSPF. We hope to see those changes in the restructuring of the accountability model, because we do believe that progress is very, very important. And when we talk about our students who benefit most by being at school, we want to incentivize that to the maximum possible degree.
Because there are schools in our Title I populations that are moving the needle. If you remove the attendance, they're growing kids. I mean, it's amazing with all of the different excuses. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, Senator Buck. Senator Rogich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Laurie Rogesh. My question is with regard to mental health. Do the students receive any credits for attending support groups, peer groups?
Thank you, Senator Adam Young, for the record. And I am going to say that I don't have direct knowledge of students earning credits with those types of models, but I think that what we hope to see as some of these innovative systems kind of align in these new models is that not only could students earn credit for participating in activities like that, but we recognize that learning does not only occur within the four walls of a school building. And again, some of these enabling policies that this committee, along with our Department of Education partners, can facilitate would open up a whole world of possibilities for students to actually personalize their learning in ways that don't have to happen when they're sitting or working on a school campus.
Thank you. I think it would be a wonderful incentive.
Thank you, Senator Rogich. And thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for allowing me to push you along. I just want to be respectful of the senator's time. And some have a committee meeting at 3:30, and we want to make sure we allow time for public comment when the full panel's here. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. We will now move to public comment. If you'd like to make public comment here in Carson City, please come on up to the table. If there's anyone in Vegas, I see a couple of people that would like to make public comment. Please make your way to the table there as well. And just as a reminder, members of the public can provide public comment in person or by phone, or can submit public comment to the committee's email. And again, if you don't, we're going to have 2 minutes each, and if you don't have a chance to finish your comment, you can give your full comments to the committee secretary, and she will make sure that the committee gets all of those. Okay, each person has 2 minutes, and please remember before to clearly state and spell your name for the record. We'll start right here.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert, R-O-B-E-R-T, Munson, M-U-N-S-O-N. I am a high school English teacher, and I'm with the Nevada State Education Association. I am going to be reading this letter on behalf of President of the Nevada Rural Educators Association, Melinda Ramirez, who is currently teaching in her third grade classroom and cannot be here today. Dear Senators, I hope this letter finds you well. I am writing for public comment to urge you to support and pass the funding plan recommended by the Commission on School Funding. As an educator, parent, and a community member, I deeply understand the critical need for an equitable and sustainable education system. The recommendations provided by the Commission reflect careful thought, research, and collective understanding of the challenges we face within our schools. It is imperative that we honor their work by turning their plan into actionable policy. The funding plan is vital for addressing the severe teacher shortages and improving compensation. Teachers are the backbone of our education system, yet many are leaving the profession due to an inadequate pay and insufficient resources. The proposed funding model will help attract and retain quality educators by ensuring salaries reflect the importance of their work and that they are equipped with the resources necessary to succeed in the classroom. This plan has the potential to close achievement gaps and provide all students, regardless of their background, with an equal opportunity to succeed. With adequate funding, schools can provide more personalized learning experiences, offer enrichment programs, and enhance the social and emotional support necessary for our students to thrive. The focus of equitable distribution will ensure that students in underfunded districts receive the resources they deserve. The proposed funding will enable schools to maintain the high standards and foster environments for both educators and students. This includes infrastructure, as well as updating learning materials, support, and special education services, and addressing the growing mental health needs for our students.
Mr. Munson, I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you, sir. If there are more comments, please make sure you give them to the secretary, because we do want to get them.
Thank you, Senator
Appreciate
Taylor.
that. Thank you so much. Next, please go ahead, public comment.
I'm John Ippolito with Protect Nevada Children. You can find 1,500 of us on Facebook at Protect Nevada Children. Unofficial and official ed tech vendors. Almost 11 years ago, the political left and right started writing about how all the student data collected and student profiles created on children may affect their futures. Here are the highlights from 5 of those articles. This data will be stored forever, and parents will have very, very limited access to it, if any at all. At around the same time, official student databases were being set up. Both the ACLU and the 10th Amendment Center were against these longitudinal databases being set up. In Nevada, the 2 student databases are Infinite Campus and SANE. Experts say Infinite Campus is the largest database ever created on U.S. children. The problem data is the medical, discipline, minor discipline, counseling, MTSS, and psychiatric data. Much of this incriminating data is subjective. Most parents never see any of this data and have no idea it's stored forever. Parents can request to view all the data IC will store forever about their children if they go to protectnevadachildren.org. Parents who have done this have been very surprised. The most incriminating data is also stored forever in the NDE's student database called SANE. Infinite Campus and SANE are not healthcare providers, so the data is not protected under HIPAA. We're seeking a bill sponsor to begin deleting IC and SANE data, or at least educate parents on how to see all the IC data that will be stored forever about their kids. If you'd consider doing this, please contact us. My email address is at the bottom of your handout. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Next commenter.
Hi, good afternoon. Hello, fellow senators. Congratulations. And yes, I'm Don Gallimore, Senior, not D-O-N-G-A-L-L-I-M-O-R-E, Senior. And I've been a partner with Protect Nevada Children, and pretty much I'm here on my own today. But basically, I just wanted to admonish everyone who's not looking at figures about data and data collection and how it's hurting our kids. And it's been hurting our kids since Common Core was incorporated, and actually before that. But for the most part, we need to make sure that our kids are safe and happy, and I don't think that these policies these new policies are doing it, because essentially we've tried this before. And we're always changing the baseline to make sure that it's a good for whomever is paying for it, but it's not good for our kids. Like Senator Titus mentioned, we're still 46. We were 46 back in 2009, and we were 46 back in 1990. So this is not something that's an improvement, and whatever this acting accountability crap is, we need to pretty much rethink what we're doing here and make sure that we make our kids safe. Implement campus, relying on data, SANE, DESA, all those data collection components. Edmodo has been sold. You know, everybody's got all our kids' information. We're not doing any good. We need to change the paradigm. Go back to the Massachusetts educational system. Reading, writing, arithmetic. That's it.
Thank you so much for your comments. Next, please go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. I just learned that we may lose the hearing room in Las Vegas at 3:30, so we're going to jump there and get those comments. Then we'll come right back to you. Additionally, if you're here in the room and would like to make more public comment, please come down at this time. And right now, we will go to Las Vegas. Anyone there in Las Vegas? I think I see someone at the table. Thank you, sir. You go right ahead.
Yes. Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Stephen, S-T-E-V-E-N, Horner, H-O-R-N-E-R, resident of Senate District Number 11, a retired special education teacher, and am still a guest teacher for Clark County School District. I attended McGill Grade School in White Pine County, White Pine High School, and UNLV, and I am the president of the Nevada State Education Association retired members. By increasing our state funding to at least the national average, we will ensure that students have the environment that will be conducive to better learning, because the class sizes will be smaller and the educators will spend more time individualizing instruction. Better and optimum funding would also help make sure students start the day with a healthy meal and that every student should have a lunch. The ability to recruit and retain educators will be increased, which will truly help with rich instruction. Please pass the plan and give our students the best future possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Horner. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas who would like to make public comment? Yes, please go right ahead, ma'am. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. My name is Jerry North, Gerrinorth. Good morning, Chairman Taylor and the members of the committee. I'm a resident of Assembly District 12, Senate District 21. I've been retired from CCSD since 2008 as a full-time teacher and have been a guest teacher from 2010 to 2020. I'm a member of the Nevada State Education Association Retired and the Clark Retired Education Association. When I started teaching in Nevada in 1980, we were funding education at 91% of the national average. When my students took our yearly exams based on tests devised in Nevada for Nevada, we did well. Most years, all my students scored 80% or better, even into the 1990s. I could tell when students came from out of state because of their poor performance in my classroom. That was also the time when homecoming school became more widespread. By the time they came into my classroom, they were well behind, and we, the student, their family, and myself, worked very hard to get them up to par with the rest of the students. According to the records, Nevada is now getting only 71% of the national average, putting us at an extreme disadvantage with the rest of the country, ranking 45 out of 50. If we do not continue to add to the per student spending amounts, we will fall further and further behind, cheating our state, families, and businesses of educated citizens with the abilities and skills to improve all aspects of living in the great state of Nevada. Please pass the plan, which is research-based and devised by the Commission on School Funding in 2022. Don't let their work be wasted. Nevada needs to add $700 per pupil in each of the next 2 years to catch up with the rest of the nation. Show our children that they matter more than stadiums, actors, and private schools whose parents can actually afford the tuition without state vouchers. Our hardworking families
Ms. North,
depend on
can
you.
you wrap that up? Thank you so much. You almost made 2 minutes. You
Thank
got
you.
close. Thank you so much for those
Okay.
comments. Is there anyone
Thank
else in
you.
Las Vegas who would like to make public comment? Okay, seeing none, the BPS will go to the phone line. Is there anyone on the phone line who would like to make public comment?
Thank you, Chair Taylor. To provide public comment, please press *9 on your phone now to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair. For the record, my name is Erica Dungary, and I am an Education Support Staff Professional with the Clark County School District, and Employee Staff Professional at Large for Nevada State Education Association. I am here today to express my strong support for passing the plan for optimal education funding. As a high school register, I have seen firsthand how increased school funding has positively impacted our students. The measures enacted in the last legislative session allowed us to retain staff and reduce class sizes, enabling educators to provide more personalized attention. These investments have ensured that our school districts across Nevada have necessary resources to support student success. As a support staff professional, I have also witnessed how these additional funds have expanded much-needed student services, leading to better educational outcomes and improved staff retention. Specifically, the increased funding has contributed to Nevada's initiative to boost student attendance. At my current school, chronic absenteeism has improved by at least 15% within the last 2 years, a direct result of the additional resources schools have received. Furthermore, I have seen special education students gain access to critical resources and services tailored to their unique learning needs, ensuring they have the support necessary to thrive. Adequate and sustained education funding makes a meaningful and measurable difference in our schools. I urge you to support the plan for the benefit of our students, educators, and communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dungaree, and thank you for your service in the schools. Is there anyone else on the phone line, BPS?
Chair, there are no additional public comment callers at this time.
Thank you so much. We'll return right here to Carson City for public comment. I see a couple of people sitting here. Please go forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, I am Brian Wallace, BrianWallace, and I am currently a middle school teacher in Carson City and the Vice President of the Nevada State Education Association. The Nevada State Education Association has been the voice of Nevada educators for 125 years. With bipartisan support, the legislature created the Commission on School Funding and asked the Commission to develop a plan to reach optimal education funding in 10 years. NSCA has closely monitored and actively engaged in the work of the Commission. The Commission has taken this charge seriously by exercising a professional and methodical approach to their mission as was presented today. The Commission presented today on how to reach optimal funding, and NSCA calls on you, the legislature, to pass the plan, as remaining in the past is not acceptable. The Commission's plan proposes raising revenue with an expanded sales tax base and the closure of property tax loopholes. The plan calls for $700 increases to per pupil funding in each of the next 2 years, costing just over $600 million. The plan calls for similar increases over the next 4 bienniums. Nevada educators, students, and communities are counting on you to pass the plan. 2 years ago, NSA also came to this table saying it was time for 20. While there were issues with the mechanics of SB 231, progress was made and we were able to negotiate 20% raises in many of our districts. To continue the progress on educator retention and recruitment, these funds must be made permanent, and frankly, new funds will be needed. Continued progress will require significant political will and discipline to remain focused on the task, our students. Proposals to divert public funds away from public schools, whether that be through new mechanisms to expand private school vouchers or a giveaway to Hollywood studios, should be rejected. Every student in Nevada deserves the opportunity to succeed, and that starts with a fully funded education system. This is the moment to break the cycle of chronic underfunding and invest in the future of our public schools by passing the plan. The Commission has done its job by developing the plan that was requested. Now is the time to pass it for our
Mr.
students, our
Wallace,
teachers, our
I'm sorry, your time
communities.
is up, sir. Thank you very much. You got close to making it too. All right, we appreciate that. Please go ahead. Next commenter. If there's anyone else in Carson, please come forward at this time. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Dawn Echeverry, DAWNETCHEVERRY, President of the Nevada State Education Association, and I'm going to be reading into testimony a letter from one of our support professionals in Humboldt County. Good afternoon, Chair Taylor and committee members. My name is Andrea Kelly, and I serve as the president of the Humboldt County Support Staff Organization. I stand before you today not just as a union leader, but as the voice for educators, support staff, parents, and most importantly, the students who will bear the burden of these proposed funding cuts. Education is not another line item in a budget, it is an investment in our future, in our workforce, and in our communities. Yet, with the proposed reductions in per pupil funding, we risk jeopardizing the very foundation of our investment. These cuts will not just be a number on a spreadsheet. They will be larger class sizes, fewer resources, reduced staff, and a loss of opportunities for students who deserve better. Our schools are already struggling to do with less. Teachers are using their own money to buy school supplies. Support staffs are stretched thin, covering multiple roles to keep schools running smoothly. Support staff, some of whom just received, with the help of SB 231, were finally able to make a decent living and now facing uncertainty again. Many have worked 2 jobs just to survive. One ESP in particular, who works in our district, was finally able to move out of an RV with her 3 children and into an apartment. These funding cuts threaten to undo the progress, forcing many back into financial instability. If we truly believe education is the great equalizer, then we must prioritize accordingly. We cannot expect our children to thrive in an unfunded system. We cannot expect our educators to succeed without the tools to support their needs, and we cannot expect our communities to grow and flourish if they fail to invest in our schools. I urge you to reconsider these cuts and consider that every dollar taken from education is a dollar taken from our future.
Ms. Echeverry, I'm sorry, I need to
That's
cut
fine.
you off.
I
but
will
you're there.
hand it in.
Appreciate it. Please turn it in and we will get that. The committee staff will make sure of that. Thank you so much for all who came to give public comment. Our next meeting will be on Monday. February 10th, right here at 1 p.m. Thank you for your indulgence as we got through our technical issues, and we will make sure that 15-minute presentations are 15-minute presentations. Thank you so much, everybody. We are adjourned.